defending black people, and certainly defending the man of God. One of the charges that Minister Farrakhan suggested is that we have to beat back these false charges of anti-Semitism. As you know, that is like the weapon, the go-to weapon of white supremacy. Right. We know that white folks rule the world, but when we want to get more specific, we have to see and recognize this subset of whites, of Caucasians, who happen to be primarily members of the Jewish community. Not all Jews, but certain members of the Jewish community who wield tremendous influence and control over practically all the major industries of world power. So Minister Farrakhan used the term that, upon learning of these enemies, they were pretty much at every turn. In education, in finance, in banking, in media, in Hollywood, in all of these things, including so-called black organizations. Hello, somebody. Yes, I'm going to say that again. See, the enemy, this synagogue of Satan, as the scriptures describe, has inserted himself in just about every aspect of power, including so-called black liberation organizations. So we see now that our sisters are even under attack. And since they know Minister Farrakhan's messianic role, let me backtrack just a little bit. See, part of what Minister Farrakhan also asked for, as you probably heard in Chicago, is that he asked and demanded a showdown to call out Satan. They've been putting these false charges on him for all these years. And be mindful now, when they do this, this is not just some name calling when they call somebody anti-Semitic. Because of this lie that has been placed on our minister and the Nation of Islam, the tremendous amount of resources, networks, and friendships and relationships have been thwarted. So all of the good that the Nation of Islam has done and still continues to do for black people could have been done exponentially were it not for Satan's hand in forcing people to disassociate from the Nation of Islam. They want to make us a fringe group. They want to marginalize the Nation of Islam and our leadership and relegate us to the sideline somewhere. So they always write us out of history, as though the Nation of Islam has not produced the most magnificent and productive people that black America has ever seen. That's just a fact. All the heroes that you really like, that you say were really down for the people and all it is, they came through the Nation of Islam. You claim to love Malcolm, but you don't love the source that made Malcolm what he was. You claim you love Muhammad Ali, who shook up the world and he stood up against the Vietnam War as though he did that absent of the Nation of Islam. You claim you love the Black Panthers and how they did all of this and they stood up, but you know they were inspired by the program of the Nation of Islam. You say the Black Panthers did some awesome stuff. They had some breakfast and they fed children in the schools, and that is absolutely awesome. But you know where they got that from? They got that from the people who not only fed children in public schools, but they got that from people who actually grew their own food with their hand, with their So the Nation of Islam is in a vanguard position. And the Nation of Islam will not lose. We are fighting for this truth and we will surely win. But in order to do this, there's a process that has to take place. In this divine process, somebody has to call out and identify the Satan that has the world deceived and confined in their grasp, in their grip. But this is not a job just for anybody. I'm going to say that again. It's not for any black leader to call out Satan and identify Satan and stand up against Satan. See, black leaders can stand up and march. That's good. Black leaders can say, oh my, that's a grave injustice. We need to protest. We need to get a lawsuit and all this type of stuff. That's what good black leaders do. But the Messiah, that you read about, his job doesn't go to try to change legislation or go protest with marches and a sign that white folks made for them. See, the Messiah's role is to literally call out the Satan and identify name and faith. This is what distinguishes the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from practically all black leadership.
Come on, man. Come on.
See, you wonder why the powerful Jewish community, the satanic Jews, are adamantly opposed, not to those that's marching, but to him and the Nation of Islam. Why do they make it a requirement for any black leader that seeks to find favor in this world? Why do they make it a requirement to condemn, denounce, and disassociate from the Nation of Islam? Because they know Farrakhan's messianic role while we don't.
Come on now.
See, in the Holy Quran, Allah tells us that certain Jews, they recognize Allah's messenger Messiah just as they recognize their own sons. Why do they recognize them? Because, see, that certain rabbinical sect of Jews, they've had the prophecies. They know the prophecies, perhaps even better than other Christian and Islamic clerics. Because they know in these prophecies, they know that God is to come, not as a spook. They know he is supposed to be associated with a warplane that flies in the sky. Another subject for another time. But they know these things, and they know the descriptors of that messianic personage that is to rise up and identify the end of their satanic world. So even though Allah tells us that they would recognize him as they recognize their own son, it still lets us know that they would oppose him. At a certain point, Pharaoh recognized that Moses was the one after he saw all these heavenly powers backing up Moses. But that made him increase in his hatred for God's people. Herod recognized that the Messiah was to come up. But the mind of satanic Herod was not to go and worship and help this Messiah. His was to kill the Messiah who would free his people. So you're dealing with this satanic force among us today who know the prophecies and who know the messianic descriptors, and they know who Farrakhan is, and they know who you are. All praises to Allah. This is what is described in theology as the Messianic age. It is the time of that showdown that Minister Farrakhan talked about. And you are in it. You're playing a vital role in this thing. So you see how they attack anybody who would dare associate with this truth. They want to put fear in black leaders to keep them from even listening or sitting down in the same room with Minister Farrakhan. We've never seen this type of hatred and vitriol against a black leader in our history. And Lord knows our history is replete with the U.S. government attacking and antagonizing black leaders. That's all they've done. But we've not seen where they put this much care and diligence in trying to stop you from just listening. Let me say that again. Just listening to what Minister Farrakhan has to say. So they're attacking those sisters of the Women's March right now. Yes, sir. Our sisters Tamika Mallory and Carmen Perez and Linda Sarsour. Sisters who were inspired by Minister Farrakhan, supported by Minister Farrakhan, and encouraged by Minister Farrakhan to stand up for women's rights. Be mindful that these three brilliant sisters all were given a platform at 10-10-15, Justice or Else, the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March led by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But now, since the Women's March has taken up momentum, there goes Satan, come in.
He's on the snake.
Allah tells us in the Holy Quran that Satan appears as a sincere advisor.
Right.
You see? And so now these toxic white feminists,
Yes. Right.
toxic as hell, toxic racist white feminists,
That's right.
have the nerve to tell our sisters, you better denounce and condemn Minister Farrakhan and this anti-Semitism, because the Women's March does not associate with such anti-Semitism and bigotry. Goddamn lie. I'm sorry. And they're so quick, and this is the history of white feminism. Its goal has always been to take black women away from black causes altogether to support the cause really of white women. It is a virulent form of white supremacy that we see being constantly displayed today. And I'll leave you with this reminder from white feminist hero Susan B. Anthony. She's like one of the mothers of white feminist suffrage movement. She, in a meeting in the late 1860s, where Frederick Douglass was present, she let it be known her racist attitude and idea and what she stood for. She let it be known. She said in so many words, I would give my right arm before I stand up and fight for these black causes y'all talking about, for these black freedoms. See, they wanted black women and black people to subjugate the plight of black folks who just slavery about a year prior. So the hell with all, you need to stand with women's rights. Sound like Alyssa Milano and those crackers talking about you need to condemn Farrakhan or I won't speak at the Women's March, as though you've done something for black folks. So let's keep this in mind as we fight Islam, because we will surely win.